Dr. Parth Chauhan, an associate professor in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, Mohali. His area of research includes paleoanthropology, prehistory, human evolution, adaptation and behavior, quaternary sciences, ethnoarchaeology, geoarchaeology, and many more. He earned his PhD in archaeology and prehistory from University of Sheffield in 2005, focusing on site formation and Paleolithic research in the Shivalik Hills of northern India. He has held research positions in Indiana University, the Physical Research Laboratory, PRL, Ahmedabad, and held many research positions at Deccan College, including roles and Fulbright Scholar and Visiting Scholar. I invite him on stage for his talk on paleoanthropology of Narmada River Valley. Dr. Parth Chauhan.
Namaste and good afternoon. Respected dignitaries, Dr. Chakravarti, Dr. Ota, respected professors, friends and delegates and students. My topic is again referring to paleoanthropology of Narmada Valley. And by paleoanthropology, I would like to highlight that basically it's a multidisciplinary approach to understanding prehistory or human evolution. And I'm going to give a very broad overview of the knowledge we have and the work we have been doing last few years. But before that, I'll just give a global context of the relevance of India in understanding international paleoanthropology. So one thing is that we have a lot of different stone technologies going back 3.3 million years. And India or South Asia has most of them. Except for Oldowan and Lomequian, we have all the other technologies present in South Asia. And they also indicate that different species were probably existing, different human species were interacting and adapting to South Asia. And when Homo sapiens evolves in Africa and leaves Africa, there are other species present in parts of Europe and Asia. So we have initial dispersal from Africa, and after 1 million years onwards, we have multiple species emerging outside of Africa. And then Homo sapiens is interbreeding with them. For example, we are interbreeding with the Neanderthals, Denisovans, etc. In fact, modern day Indian population has the highest amount of DNA of Neanderthals in the world after Europeans. In contrast, the African population do not have any Neanderthal DNA. There's also a hypothesis based on stone tools that we have the Neanderthals present in South Asia, at least up to Pakistan, if not southern part of India. This is based only on the archaeology, but no fossils have been found yet of Neanderthals in South Asia. So what is the relevance of South Asia? First of all, it's located in the center of the old world. So it's connecting all the records of Africa, Europe, East Asia, Southeast Asia. And it may have been corridor of movement, west and east, for human populations, for animal populations. And stone tools are known since European history of research as well, 1800s. And we have evidence of human occupation going back to at least 1.5 million years, maybe 2.6 million years. And we have a lot of extinct animals, evidence of hippopotamus, giraffes, we have ostriches, various elephant species, etc. So very rich and diverse. And now coming to the relevance in terms of geography, it is possibility that we have these barriers, ecological barriers, topographic barriers, drainage barriers, raw materials, like Ganga Plains, Himalaya, Tibetan Plateau, and then Northeast has heavy rainfall. So these areas may have discouraged movement eastwards from India. Because if you look at Northeast India, for example, we don't have all the stone technologies. It's missing. Also in Bangladesh, Burma, all these surrounding zones, we have stone tools missing of the earliest technologies. So we don't have evidence of movement from west to east at the moment. So that means it was maybe a cul-de-sac. So different populations were occupying different zones at different times, but not moving eastwards. And very little research has been done in understanding environments. So one issue is that archaeologists have not worked with geologists, and geologists have not worked with archaeologists that much. So a lot of sites have been studied from environmental perspective, reconstructing habitats, reconstructing vegetation, but not much archaeological evidence has been integrated into these quaternary studies. So only about 100 studies have been done across India, and many of them along the Thar Desert, for example, and randomly in Ganga Plains. But you can see major pockets which have no research done. Central India, Eastern India, Northeast India, major zones we have no knowledge about ancient environments. So we don't know how the humans were adapting, why different animals were becoming extinct, etc. And if you look at the known evidence across the South Asian zone or any subcontinent, we have many, many sites preserved, including Lower Paleolithic, Middle Paleolithic, Upper Paleolithic, and they increase in some places in number in types of raw materials, showing dynamic behavioral adaptations and exploitation of different rocks for making the stone tools. But what is interesting is that like Upper Paleolithic, theoretically it should be high number because we have high population by that time. But the sites are less compared to Lower Paleolithic. One reason is lack of research. Another reason is lack of preservation. Upper Paleolithic is geographically diverse. It does not occur everywhere. Only certain pockets has Upper Paleolithic. So we need to understand why this is. And then we come to different technologies. If you look at the last 100,000 years, we have diverse technologies. So I showed this slide earlier of different human species existing in the last 100,000 years. So it's possible that we have different technologies in South Asia because different human species were making different technologies. So in the past, different species have made the same technology, and sometimes one species has made different technologies, depending on the requirement. So this is just an example of diversity across the subcontinent. And now coming to Narmada Valley. Our main area of research in my lab, especially this project, Narmada Basin Paleoanthropology project, we focus on rock paintings, stone tools, vertebrate fossils, and also geological sections, like quaternary sections. And we are looking at basically geographic patterns of this evidence, ages of the sites, and reconstructing past environments, whether there was forest environment, grassland, humid environment, dry, etc., to understand the human adaptations. And the broad research questions is, what is the history of prehistoric human occupation in this region? How did natural patterns of events and tributaries, etc., affect these human patterns of existence, including culture and technology? And finally, what were the factors for faunal extinction? How much did climate play a role in extinction of animals, and how much did humans play a role in the extinction of animals? And I'll talk about extinction separately. This is a general study area location in central India, and this is where we are working along the Vindhyan Hills in the north, Gondwana Hills in the south, and then the main alluvial plains in the center. We have found sites belonging to Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and other time periods. And now coming to the main evidence that we have at the moment, not only in Narmada Valley, but the entire subcontinent. This is at the moment the oldest possibly, or the only non-Homo sapien fossils we have in South Asia, as Professor Sate has highlighted, discovered by Dr. Arun Sonakia in 1980s. We have a partial cranium, again, no teeth, no postcranial evidence, so we don't have an idea about the taxonomy. Different species names have been given, but if you look at the site, the context of this fossil is coming from this gravel horizon in the foreground, and in the background we have the fine-grained Bonetta Formation. So the gravel horizon is secondary context, so we don't know about the age of the fossil. It could be about 50,000 minimum, and maximum can be any age, up to 500,000, 1 million. But one thing is sure, that there's consensus, is that it is a female and not Homo sapiens. It might be contemporary with Homo sapiens, it might be before Homo sapiens, but at the moment, we know this much information, and age is unclear. So this is indicating the only known non-Homo sapien fossils. All other fossils in Sri Lanka, in India, belong to Homo sapiens. These are the various sites where the fossils have come from. So besides Hathnora, we have other sites in Ganga Plains. Recently, they found Homo sapien fossils in Andhra Pradesh also, in Jwalapuram. And there's other small fragments here and there, but most of them are very young. So the human fossil record is less than 50,000 years old. The Hathnora fossil is of unknown age, so we need more fossils. What is the reason now we have lack of fossils? many people ask me this question. One is lack of research, enough research looking for fossils of humans. Second is there are no experts in India that much who can recognize human fossils. There's only one or two physical anthropologists. And in Africa, China, where people find fossils, the physical anthropologists go to the field and look for the fossils. If I go and find fossils, I won't recognize human fossils. Then sometimes people don't collect everything. Sometimes there's preservation bias. And this is an example from Shivaliks. They have studied different animal sizes, and they found out that the small to medium-sized animals and large animals are rare, and the medium-sized to large animals are common. So this, in Shivaliks, may explain why human fossils are absent. So human occupation is not absent, but human fossils are absent. So lack of preservation. And this might apply to some places in Narmada as well. Now, just to show you, take you to a visual journey of some of these key sites, like Dansi Formation, one of the oldest formations known in the Quaternary, based on work by GSI and others, showing extension beyond 800,000 or 8 lakh years. And we have carried out excavations at this site in 2013-14 to understand this technology that is being found. This is currently the oldest known data site with archaeology, and interestingly, it does not have diagnostic artifacts. The technology is unique. So it shows that there's some kind of adaptation going on here where diagnostic artifacts are not always required in the past. So one question we're trying to answer is, what is the reason for these various diversities in artifacts? Now, to find older sites, we need older context. So a big problem in India is that anything older than 800,000 is poorly recorded, is poorly known. Early Pleistocene context is not well known. If I want to find 2 million-year-old artifacts, I have to find 2 million-year-old geology, which is very challenging because of all the population levels, erosional processes, weathering, etc. Now, just to show you how we find artifacts in the Narmada Valley in terms of density or context, this is coming from Surajkund site near Hatnora, one single hand axe that we found, and then looking at sites along the Vindhyan Hills, thousands of artifacts, sometimes hundreds of thousands of artifacts. Again, this is Acheulean, so you can see stone tools in terms of hand axes, cleavers, scrapers, close-up of cores, large cores were manipulated. So you can see the hills in the background. So here, the sites are along the foothills, and here, this site is next to the Narmada River. Again, another context of buried fan deposits with Acheulean artifacts coming 2 kilometers from Vindhyan Hills. Farmland showing large scatters of Acheulean and early Middle Paleolithic assemblages in Nimton. So I'm just showing you different contexts of how we find these artifacts and their proximity to the entire drainage network. And another site which is interesting is Mahadevipuriya in Narsinghpur district. Very famously, it has been studied by Khatri and others such as Supekar, and they have found out that the artifacts here are unique. For example, this is the context. The gravel is cemented in some places it's loose, and they're finding artifacts of different types. And what is interesting about Mahadevipuriya is that the hand axes, some of them are not very typical. They are atypical. And we're trying to understand, is it a different adaptation? Is it a different age or species, or raw material is playing a role? And on the right, we have the Surajkund hand axe, which I showed you the photograph. So some of these specimens are very symmetrical, and some are not symmetrical. What is the reason? Is it cognition? Is it ecology? Is it subsistence? Is the rock type affecting the shape? So we're trying to understand behavior from various factors. And we're looking at the entire sequence at Mahadevipuriya to see ecological change over time, to get dates of different layers, and to see when the site was abandoned and how the artifacts actually became deposited. Is it by human behavior, multiple visits at one site for a long time, or is it the river bringing the artifacts and accumulating everything in one site? Because geological interpretation is important to not make any wrong judgment about the human behavior. And then we find slightly smaller artifacts in various locations across the valley. But I'll show you at the end of my talk, the summarizing of the entire zone, that the evidence of technology is variable. It's not homogeneous across the entire basin from west to east. But the dominant archaeology after Acheulean is microliths. So we have microliths on top of the Vindhyan Hills. We have microliths in the valley. in different contexts, in the rock shelters, in the caves, so very abundant, indicating high population level of Homo sapiens. Here we have microliths inside the forest areas, rich scatters. Many of sites are stratified. And one of my students has worked on this, Dr. Nuputiwari, on the microlithic record. And we have dates from late Pleistocene to about 3,000 years ago. And then the second evidence is rock art. We have various types of rock art across the main zone, especially Adamgarh and other sites, Joshipur. This is coming from Mandiko. So we have very rich, abundant evidence of rock art. But unfortunately, we don't have dates. So some of it may be prehistoric, but other evidence is probably historical, medieval, maybe Chalcolithic age. Here we have different styles of horseback riders, showing possibly different cultures making them, individual painters, for example. And right now we are in the process of mapping all these sites and seeing geographic perspective. And here another site is Joshipur complex in the northern part of the basin, right across Hoshangabad, showing a very rich, diverse collection of rock art. We try to understand it from themes, and we see that certain themes like animals, geometric designs, human figures are very high in number. Other themes are very less. This is, for example, Mandiko complex. Individual rock shelters we have tried to analyze spatially to see the frequency in style, overlap patterns, and maybe we can understand the purpose of the rock shelters, because different rock shelters will have different purposes. We call them paintings, but they may have had different meanings for past populations. They may have been territorial markers, they may have been memorial markers, they could have been storytelling, dream sequences. We don't necessarily assume that everything is decoration and painting. And we also found ostrich eggshell nearby, which we dated to 48,000. If you look at the all India level, based on publications, the animal figures, human figures, and geometric patterns are the highest in number, just based on frequency at the moment. Of course, there's going to be research bias and preservation, but you can see that other things like handprints, hunting scenes, weapons, floral designs are less in number. So we're trying to understand geographic dichotomy of paintings across the subcontinent based on publications as well. And if we summarize the symbolic behavior issue in India in terms of paintings and engravings, it's very marginal compared to global records. We have more symbolic behavior in Europe, in South Africa, in China, etc. For example, in Sulawesi, in Southeast Asia, they have dated the paintings to 45,000 years ago by Homo sapiens. But in India, we don't have those dates. We don't know if the paintings were introduced or innovated, maybe both. Also, what the age of the oldest evidence is, the paintings. The problem is that in India, a majority of paintings are in the rock shelters. They have not been preserved well. But the European paintings come from caves, so have very good preservation, and they can date them. They preserve organic material. So preservation bias is there in terms of caves versus rock shelter. And finally, is it possible that some populations made symbolic behavior on perishable materials like wood, bone, antler, ivory? It's not necessary that everything was made on stone walls. And now coming to the final evidence we have of animals, this is a paper published by my colleagues on the extinction events. So you can see on the bottom, we have multiple species, for example, wild cattle, 2 different elephant species, 1 ostrich species, hippo. These have become extinct between 50,000 and 10,000 years ago. And that overlaps with arrival of Homo sapiens with microlithic technology. Now, we don't have direct evidence of human involvement at the moment. We don't have evidence of hunting yet. We don't have evidence of any other interference. But we do find ostrich eggshells at archaeological sites. So they were definitely targeting the eggs for food, as water containers, making the beads, ornaments. So if they're targeting the eggs, is going to affect the ostrich population. So indirect impact, not necessarily hunting. Even encroachment can affect animal populations and decrease the numbers, lead to fragmented populations as well. So we're trying to understand this from multiple perspectives. So here we have a list of sites showing stone tools and animal fossils combined. So a lot of these sites are showing potential evidence of human interference in terms of hunting or scavenging or butchery, etc. Here we have an example of how we find stone tools and fossil together in the same layer. This can be geological, just mixing from the rivers, or it can be behavioral, human interference. And so we're looking at, for example, the Narsinghpur district, where we have found many fossils. And what is interesting, that Narsinghpur district has a very rich occurrence compared to adjacent areas like Hoshangabad area, Sihor area. So why Narsinghpur is so rich, we are trying to understand. Is it normal preservation or is it exceptional preservation? Here are some close-ups of the skulls we have found of different fauna, especially with horns, including buffalo and cattle. And then Professor Sathe already talked about Amunda skeleton. I would like to highlight that this kind of cluster is very rare. Most sites, we get individual specimens, but clusters, there are only less than a dozen known so far. So that is interesting. And we have also dated fossils directly using radiocarbon and found out that this skeleton, this specimen of hippo goes to 15,000. So we do have the youngest known hippo so far, and maybe even up to 10,000, 5,000. For example, we have engravings in Konkan, and we have the Harappan seals depicting rhino. So we know that rhino was existing probably until the middle Holocene at some places. So we use this kind of evidence indirectly to understand biogeography of fossils. So various factors why the Narsinghpur district has so many fossils. It could be multiple factors affecting the preservation. For example, natural deaths, natural catastrophes, fluvial action, human behavior, flash floods and drought. These kind of things may have led to mass killings. So you can have a pattern based on the geology, based on the archaeology, as well as the geochemistry as well. It is possible that this area is geochemically more inducive for preservation compared to compared to Sihor district and Narmadapuram districts. And we're also trying to use GIS and remote sensing to predict locations of sites. So one thing is understanding the animal-human relationship, but by predicting the locations of sites, we're trying to find more human fossils. Now, I showed you that slide earlier of the bias and size of animals. If we can get a pattern here, the large mammals are found here, small mammals are found here, maybe we can increase our chances of finding human fossils, because that is the number one thing we need in India compared to Africa, China, Europe, is more increase in different species. And if I summarize, we have general observations, basically. The central location of Narmada Valley may have been responsible for dynamic stone tool record. The factors for geographically variable accumulations of fossils is unclear in different districts. For example, the Gujarat alluvium plains has a different fossil record. Amarkantak area has not yielded that many fossils. We have no evidence of Paleolithic butchery yet found. Recently, this was reported from Kashmir, very convincing evidence. About 60 artifacts and a butchered elephant skeleton. But we don't have convincing evidence yet. It's mostly lack of research, in my opinion, and not lack of evidence. There's also a dichotomy between eastern zone of Narmada Valley and western zone of Narmada Valley, and I'll summarize that in the next slide. And finally, some of the rock art may follow geographic patterns across this entire zone. And we are looking at this using, again, GIS and AI to see if there's any differences in size of the paintings, style of the paintings, context of the paintings, and then compare the Vindhyan hills in the north with the Gondwana hills in the south to see if there's cultural connections based on the style overlap, etc. And finally, just to see the comparative perspective on western zone, central zone, and eastern zone, you can see that lower Paleolithic is comparatively less in the eastern zone. If you look at the central zone, the upper Paleolithic and middle Paleolithic is less. So there is some kind of phenomenon going on, and this is probably due to multiple factors. Research bias, preservation bias, human behavior in the past, different raw material sources. For example, the Vindhyan area is very dynamic. Some places, very good rocks are available. Other places, poor quality rocks are available. That would have affected the pattern of different evidences. In the western zone, towards Gujarat, we don't have that much rock art depicted yet, but the central zone has abundant rock art. Same problem with eastern zone. And fossil evidence at the moment is mostly abundant in eastern zone and central zone, but the western zone has yielded some sites, but going towards Gujarat, there's gaps. So we need to fill these gaps with more surveys, more documentation, And a comprehensive picture of the region can be better understood by comparative studies of all these evidences. And the biggest challenge that we have at the moment is preservation. And one of the solutions that we can consider, as Professor Joshi also mentioned, we need dialogue. We need to involve the local populations at various levels, including farmers, the people living in local towns, to preserve this heritage for long term. For example, Hathnora site, where the hominin has been found, it is not preserved. It is not protected. It is very much in danger, and a lot of activities going on, and it is getting slowly destroyed over time. Same thing with rock art sites, same thing with fossil sites. No sites in this area have been preserved for geoheritage tourism, for educational purposes, as an open-air museum, etc. So in that context, I welcome Professor Sate's idea of establishing a fossil park in Narsinghpur district, and then preserving a lot of the sites that way. Sometimes we can do with replicas, sometimes we can do with original specimens, and vice versa. Thank you very much for your attention. I would like to acknowledge IIT Gandhinagar and Dr. Alok Kanungo and Dr. Pranab Mahapatra for inviting me to this forum, various funding agencies that have funded the work, various colleagues who have contributed to the work as well, and students, and then, of course, different authorities who have given permissions to work in Madhya Pradesh. Thank you very much.
Questions?
I don't have any question. I just want to tell you about heritage awareness. Recently, at this volcanic site of Bori in Maharashtra and Taluka Junnar, this Sarpanch of the village Bori has taken up the initiative, and nobody is allowed to even go close to the area which has got volcanic ash beds. And the entire village is so beautifully geared up that it comes in newspapers, it comes in local popular talks in Marathi by the local villagers. Sometimes Dr. Sheila Mishra is also invited there. But anyone thinking of widening the roads or opening some canals or some sand mafia coming into picture, nobody is even allowed to enter that village at all. So I think that kind of, as you rightly pointed out, that the awareness, generating awareness at the grassroots level of villages, I think would serve the purpose the best way. So I think what he is saying is right, that we must hold meet when we are in the field, as we generally do, that we meet the Sarpanch and other people in the area and communicate with them. And that's how they let us know in course of time where the fossils are found, where not fossils found, and all that. So I think that kind of a communication can be built up on a larger scale, and perhaps that can build a foundation stone for future conservation of the sites.
Hi, thank you very much. I just had a small question. What is unique? Is there anything unique about Narmada Valley as opposed to the other Paleolithic finds?
To other parts of India?
Other parts of India, yeah.
Yeah, so one is the high number of fossil preservation compared to also with Shivalik. So Shivalik zone in north and Narmada Valley are the highest and richest occurrences of fossils in India. Also, it has all the stone technologies from various periods, and it also has all these evidences. So stone tools, rock art, animal fossils, and thick geological sections preserving past environmental records. So all these things are very hard to find in other places together. So this is the main, and of course the human fossil as well.
So is there anything you can draw from that yet, or it's still?
Yes, yes, it can be. Yeah. I mean, it should be technically a World Heritage Site based on ecology, fauna, archaeology, even modern intangible heritage. It can be integrated together.
No, I mean, is there any is there anything you can draw as if the community of people or the continuity of in that way, that the inhabitation that might be different from other parts of India, or is it still?
No, habitation, I would not say different from other parts of India, but we do have tribal populations, for example, the Gorns. So they are there, and they are practicing their traditional practices. So this can be integrated as well.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Parth. So nice talk. I was wondering a small question. You showed a Bittu cave and Sahia cave record for 65 kilo year, probably. And there you mentioned many of the records. So I was just wondering whether any climate, in previous somewhere,
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any climatic connection, for example, people believe that this, for example, this Harappan civilization probably they dispersed because of the climatic condition, drought condition, or whatever. So in this case, anything established similar for the extinction of any of these species anywhere?
Yeah, so between 50,000 and 10,000, the only event we have is the last glacial maximum, the LGM. But there's no link between the occurrence of LGM and extinction of the fauna at the moment. There's no clear link. I think it's mostly lack of research. I think eventually we'll find a link. And also, if you go back further in time slightly, we have the famous Toba super eruption 74,000 years ago. That might have also had an impact on the fauna, which we have not actually studied systematically.
We don't have the record probably.
No, because there's very few primary sites of Toba volcanic ash.
Okay, thank you.